Dan, mate, I know we prepared some questions earlier. Well, I
Yeah.
prepared. And then you sent me your a film that's been made for you and your family and for the Fraser Coast mates. And I watched it this morning. You sent it to me on Wednesday. I watched it this morning, and I was like, "You've ruined me." Like
Yeah.
you, in a beautiful way. Like the story that I'm sure we'll dive into today. I just want to, I guess, put a warning out to everyone listening that we will touch on suicide and mental health topics throughout this, but also some of the incredible work that you're doing as well. So if you feel that may be triggering, yeah, either this might not be the episode for this right moment, but yeah, the story that I watched this morning was so powerful, so powerful. And I guess
Mm.
that links us back to how we connected. We met at an event, Workplace Wellbeing Summit, where your partner Jess was speaking. And you actually
Yeah.
asked a question, and you were like, an equine
Yeah.
counselor. Yeah,
Echo.
equine. Yeah, equine. Sorry, I butchered that. I was like, oh,
No.
with horses. You're like, yeah. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
What drew you to that space, mate? Because I know you've had a wild story from living out bush to obviously now doing what you're doing now. How did you end up there? And for everyone listening, just an introduction into who Dan is.
Um, yeah. So, well, I worked on cattle stations for about 4 years in the Northern Territory, and we did a lot of work out there on motorbikes, helicopter mustering, chasing bulls, processing cattle, driving machinery, all the road trains and stuff, which was, every young fella's dream, just real cowboy lifestyle, riding in rodeos and everything.
Is it like
Uh,
Yellowstone? Is that what it's like?
a lot of people ask me that. I'm a big fan of Yellowstone because I've always wanted to do more with horses.
Yep.
And there is plenty of properties that do that. I just worked for some mobs that just didn't use horses because nowadays when you're covering like big, vast landscapes, to have horses, it takes a while. You got to transport the horses out there. You got to feed the horses. Whereas a motorbike, you just chuck a bit of petrol in it and then you're off. And then you can train someone to ride a motorbike a lot faster than you can a horse.
Yep.
So there's a lot of skill involved. Um, but yeah, so I did a bit of horse work out there and started getting a love for horses again. And come home back to my hometown of Maryborough, and I was just looking up some horse training clinics, trying to further my knowledge in that. And I come across this thing, which was equine-assisted therapy, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And so I clicked on it, started having a bit of a read, and I was like, "Fuck, that's a that's a bit of a different way of therapy." Not that I'd really done any therapy myself. I had I had like one counseling session when I was younger, where I'd had an accident. They'll go off on a different sort of tangent there. But yeah, actually, someone had fallen asleep in the middle of the road, and I was driving along and come over a rise and didn't see him, and then yeah, had actually run over him, and then yeah, pretty
Holy shit.
yeah, I was 17 at the time. So
Someone had just fallen asleep, like been on the grog and just fallen asleep in the road.
yep, yep. They were yeah just passed out on the left side of the road, or like my lane, in a dark spot. And so as I've sort of come over, by the time the lights sort of come down, it was already too late. And then, yeah, that was a pretty traumatic thing for myself. I was only
Fuck.
17. I think I had my license for about 6 months or something like that.
What like happened off the back of that for you personally? Like I can't even, did old bud survive? Did the person survive?
He survived, thankfully. I justified it really quickly within
Yep.
myself. I was like, he was obviously drunk. He'd fallen asleep in the middle of the road. I wasn't speeding, didn't even have music on at the time, and hadn't been like drinking or anything. And yeah, it was just a very unfortunate accident that happened. And I dare say, like, there's probably stuff there for myself that I've blocked out, because it was a pretty wild sight to see, and um, but he survived. He did lose a leg, um, but yeah, he was able to live where they thought that he wasn't.
Wow.
And yeah, after that, probably didn't drive for a while, and especially at night. And I remember I had a counselling session because I was working at KFC at the time, and I had a counselling session. They paid for some sessions, so I went along, and the counsellor, they just told me everything that I told myself. And the one thing that I took from it was she goes, what we're, you might be all right now. She goes, but what we're trying to eliminate is the fact that you might have a flashback or something may happen to you later on down the track. And then you could relapse into having all this trauma come back into your life. And I was like, oh shit, like that actually made a lot of sense to me. But I never went back for another session. I was like, yeah, I'm done.
So
Like,
it landed for you, and then you're like, yeah, no, we're good here. We're done.
yeah, I was like, I'll keep that in the back of my mind that it may come back, but right now I'm good.
Dude, and
So,
has anything come back for you over the years?
I'd say probably like 2 years later, it was when I was living in Brizzy. I was playing footy down there. I was coming back for the weekend. I picked a
Yep.
friend up from Sunny Coast and we're driving along. And as you're going through, there's a hill in Gympie on the north side, the overtaking lane. And as I'm driving through there, there was the arrow saying like to merge back into the normal lane. Late at night, probably like 11 o'clock, I wasn't really paying much attention and then caught that right at the last second and then I quickly threw the car. And so it was just, wasn't like, didn't throw the car out sideways, but just pulled me back in real quick. And it was that sort of reaction that I think, well, was definitely because of my accident that I had when I was younger, where it caused me to react without thinking.
Mm,
And that's just what happens within our brain is when we've had a traumatic experience, our brain reacts without us thinking. That's why we have triggers and we have flashbacks and PTSD is can be so high with people and they can't have any control of it is because the brain takes control. It's trying to preserve us, keep us safe.
what'd you do after that experience? Did you go back to therapy after that, or you sort of just once again you were like, oh shit, that was not ideal, and you just carried on?
Yeah, like a lot of people do. They're, oh no, like it'll be right, sort of thing. Like she'll be right, and that hasn't ever really happened to me again. I don't, not that I can sort of remember, but that was enough for me to go like, oh shit, like it's still obviously something there. Um, and then yeah, I think the biggest thing that we tell ourselves with therapy, like especially now me being a counselor, is oh no, no. Like I'm fine. I'm fine. There's worse people out there. There's a lot of other people have been through harder shit than what I have been, and you you don't realize that it's probably not in that instant that you're needing therapy as such because you think that you got to be unable to get out of bed. You got to be
Mm.
unable to, you know, feel anything. It's if you go in at that point, then you're able to sort of take control and you have to develop tools and be like, okay, I'm actually not doing that great, but I'm not at my worst. And this is how I can self-manage and get out of this funk.
That's so important. Hey, like the prevention is better than cure. Like we often wait, and especially for blokes, wait till it's like the worst possible time to start, even though it's better than not starting at all. But it's
Yeah.
when everything feels like it's imploding on us, and we're like, I really need help. And it's a lot
Yeah.
harder because not only are you trying to learn, I guess, a process to help you overcome and deal with things, you're also dealing with the thing that's, whatever pressures or trauma that it's presenting itself. So it's almost like when the times are going well, this is the smooth runway that we have to continue developing the skills for when the time comes, because it will. It's seasons of life happen.
That they definitely do, and it doesn't take much too. And yet, one day or one week you're doing well and everything's falling into place for you. And next thing you got financial pressures. If you got a family, you got to take care of all that stuff, and that all builds up. And if you got no one to talk to, like I've watched quite a few of your videos, and one very much with a client I had this morning where he's very isolated as a bloke, and he's had a stroke and he's when he was a little bit younger, and he just can't. He finds it hard to connect now, and so. And I was like, this is what Lockie talked about, blokes need friends. They need to have that. And we do. We're social beings. We need to have that social network because that's what's kept us safe through evolution.
Mm. It's
Without that, you just can't survive.
no, but it's good that you're there for that gentleman and the work you're doing. But how does one go from like working on a property, doing what you're doing, to then get into counseling? Because it's like very different careers
Yeah.
from how I look at it. Like I'm picturing you're like John Dutton, and next minute you're like, I don't know, I can't think of a therapist off the top of my head, but a counselor. But let's say someone like Hoobman or Mel Robbins or someone like that who's just really good with words and helping people understand things.
Yeah. It is a bit of a strange thing because I I remember someone once said to me like, "Oh, you'd make a really good therapist," and I was like, "Fuck, no, no one want to fucking listen to me. Like, what? Why would I do that?"
Yeah.
And and so that was back when I was 25, and then yeah, I come across that horse clinic, and I mean the equine-assisted therapy, and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting to look more into. I've always wanted to work with horses every day of my life. This is how I can probably help people." And at that time, my sister was still here. So Tiff suffered or struggled a lot with anxiety and depression. And I seen this course and I was like, okay, so you do a diploma in counseling and you get to like, you use the horses with the clients. This would give me a better understanding on how I can help my sister. And probably about 2 months later, Tiff took her life and took suicide, to suicide. And that really rocked me as a person. Tiff and I were very close growing up, and as we got into later on in adults, she actually went and worked on the cattle stations that I worked on. When I left, she'd gone out there, and so she was on there. She very much wanted to do the same sort of thing, and yeah, she'd come home and was living at home with me, and she had a breakup with a girl that she was dating, and was just in a pretty low place. And so once I lost Tiff to suicide, I was like, oh fuck, I've really got this drive that I want to do this now because um it was like I say, it's the hardest lesson that I've had to learn in life, but it's probably one of my greatest ones. And that's trying to put a positive spin on it because there is a lot of grief and pain there for me. Um, that's yeah, it's allowed me to really feel and connect with the clients that I have and the people who are out there that are struggling. So that's led into that.
Before we dive into that, like how has that been for you? Because like the documentary that I can't wait for people to be able to watch, and the reason why it had me in tears because the rawness and you see the impact. Um,
Mm,
and you know, people often feel alone in those moments and like they're a burden and obviously there's a heap of range of emotions that they could feel, but what they leave behind is, loving family and parents and friends and a whole community. How has that been for you personally to live through, but then also seeing your family and the community as well?
yeah. Oh. Well, like you say, you just seen the documentary. We all watched it last night, so it's still pretty raw for me. And very vulnerable space that we're all in. Um, feel the emotions kicking over.
If you
Um,
don't want to talk about it as well, we can circle back. That's completely fine as well. Because people can also watch the documentary once it's out. I can link it.
yeah, no, it's the fact. I think it was the biggest thing that I've learned through my course is I've always thought, I was a pretty calm and regulated person, um, which, I have been, but I've also dissociated with a lot of my feelings and really pushed them away and pushed them down. And probably it was 4.5 years ago that I lost my sister. Um, in the last sort of a year and a half, um, yeah, 2 years, I've really started to feel my emotions with it. And that's why it's still so raw. We go through so many emotions with it, with the anger and the guilt and the bargaining. There's the 5 stages of grief. Um, but yeah, the video really highlights how our community, Maryborough is a small town of 25,000 people, um, well, small, rural. And then there's Harvey Bay, which is about, I don't know, it might be up around 70 now. But Maryborough, where we were, my friends, family, everyone's coming around. They're dropping off flowers. I had a good set of mates. They made us up a heap of homemade meals, home cooked meals. They had delivered that to our place and put it in an Ingle fridge and left it out the front door and just said, get it back to us whenever you want. Like, take your time, cook you these meals. And that really kept my family and I sort of going for a week or two. It's the last thing you feel like doing in that time is cooking.
Yeah.
And it's like we're all there grieving and mourning. And yeah, the people around us, it was just something I'm always going to remember. Like, it's until you go through it, you don't really understand. Like, it's people's generosity is just amazing, and it's just what community is meant for. Uh,
It's interesting when you look at it like that. I completely different situation, but when I was overseas, the generosity of people who helped someone who they saw, like me at the time, was struggling with what I was going through, and like people just go above and beyond. And
yeah.
that's one of the lessons I wish I learned earlier was to, and I think we could teach people that it's okay to ask for help, but also like how do we actually do that? But not only just ask for help, but allow, I guess, the receivership of help. Because for so long I've been like, nah, if I want something done well, I'll do it myself, or I'll figure it out. Or as you said earlier, like I'll tough it out.
Yeah.
And look, there's some merit to that to a degree, but we got to find this. My belief for me is like there's times to lead and times to be strong, and then there's times to follow and to be a little bit softer and allow people to support us
Mm,
throughout different seasons of life. You said it took about 2 years for you to start actually feeling. What
mm.
was it that allowed you to not keep pushing those emotions down and feel them?
Um, a really great partner, Jess.
Yep.
You've seen Jess, you've heard her speak, and she doesn't allow you to hide away from anything. So
She's a great mirror for you, just being like, come on.
yeah, yeah. And she has, like, she's called me out on a lot of my bullshit, and that's what therapists do as well. It's a tough thing because, like you're sort of saying, like, we don't want to ask for help, and there is merit in trying to be a capable man because that's what we want to be at the end of the day as a provider, as a man. We want to be able to look after and take care of things. But there's always stuff where, our skill set is underdeveloped
Mm,
and we
well
need
said.
help. Yeah. And it's yeah, I guess as blokes, we suck at it, and it's a skill of just learning to ask for help. Um, yeah, like I remember I lived in Kenya for 5 months, in Africa, and I did about 3 months volunteering and about two
Yep.
months traveling all up.
Yep.
And I was over there and I was really struggling with this trip, because I was going to these schools and I was helping, and they all asked me for help and they asked me for money and they asked me for this because they call you a Mzungu, a white fella over there is a Mzungu, and
Mzungu.
yeah,
That's
yeah, so
I quite
I'd be
like that.
walking. Yeah, I loved it. I was walking down the street and they'd be like, "Hey, Mzungu, come over here."
You're like,
Uh,
that's
a
awesome.
cowboy hat on and stuff. But one thing there is what I chatted to a good friend of mine, and he said, you got to change your mindset in the way that you're looking at this. He's like, because otherwise you're just going to come home and have had a shit trip. And he goes, you you have to change your mindset. And I was like, all right. But anyway, I was getting really over like being like I was giving all my time, and I was paying for things to do there, but it just seemed like every corner I went around, someone was trying to hit me up for money. And the thing I realized there is I'd say no to them. And once I got okay and comfortable with saying no to them, they're like, oh yeah, no worries. And they'd just walk off and carry on about their day. Whereas in a Western society, when someone finally reaches out for help and asks us for help, we feel like very obligated to give that help because they really need it. And
Mm.
so I had to get used to being like, okay, they're always going to ask for help because that's how they're used to it. Whereas for me, I had to get used to saying no and get better at asking for help in my own community. And so it's like a balance there where um, I had to learn, and I'm still learning that because I still struggle with asking for help, and probably always will. But that's just a part of life with it. Might have got sidetracked off of where
No.
we're
Is,
going with
is
that.
is there any parts of you now that you're, I like bouncing around because we can go where the convo goes, but is there any
Mm.
part of you now that you obviously work in the space and as you just said, it's like it's something that you battle with and probably always will. Is there an element of you where you ever feel like an imposter or
Oh, 100%.
yeah, yeah, because you're dealing with those things? Because similar to me, like I feel I have to have everything sorted out and forever. And it's like we're humans as well. We still experience the highs and lows of life.
Yep.
Um, and so that, yeah, it's something that I definitely struggle with as well. You mentioned underdeveloped skills. Like,
Mhm.
what are some of the common ones just from people that you work with that you see that maybe we could bring attention to? And are there any things that we could do to, even if you just choose one or two,
Yeah.
because I've never heard. I wrote it down before in my notes. I was like, underdeveloped skills. That's hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, that's the most simple definition of a lot of things. But what should we be developing to better be able to deal with the highs and lows of life?
Um, yeah, well, just dropped me a little ring. Um, I got these like little things, like little fidget things. See?
Oh, wicked! I was wondering what that was on your finger before.
Yeah, you just sort of roll them up and down, and they're really good for fidgeting for clients who fidget,
Yep.
for even people who have a lot of like self-harm,
Yeah. Right.
and so because you can add pressure to it, and it can get you feeling. So when you people self-harm, it's usually because they're quite numb. They can't really feel anything. So it's a way that they can actually feel.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, so there's all these different fidget ones. There's like that. There's like a wrist one, and that one goes over your wrist. So
So where do you
people,
get those from?
I just recently bought them. It's from a site called um, Biko.
Kaiko hand rollers.
Yeah. Oh, that's just another thing. That's
Oh,
this one.
like I've never
Uh,
seen anything like that. I'm just gonna have a gander.
yeah. Yeah, they got heaps of different fidget stuff. So kids adults with autism or ADHD, really good to just they got something they can fidget on whilst also staying in being present whilst talking to you.
Yep.
I think I might have ADHD because I constantly play with this.
Mate, if I had one as well, I used to have one of those you'd
Oh, the
hold it.
spinners.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I loved it. I think I've definitely got one around the house. Whenever I find it, I'm just on. Or even now I'm holding a pen and I always just spin it around.
Yeah,
Like I think that was one of the best things I learned at school was how to flick a pen around my thumb and now I'm just always doing that.
look at that. Well, that was pretty cool. I was like, it's like a drummer. You know, they flick the
Yeah, yeah,
finger
yeah,
around and
literally.
everything.
I probably spent all of year 9 trying to learn that. Now I can do it both hand.
Oh,
I'm like, sick.
that is sick.
That's what private
Um,
education gets you.
yeah. I was only public, so I didn't have a pen. Um,
Fucking
what
hell.
was I gonna say? You're like I just seen the other day on that site. they're like magnetic rings, and there's three
Yep.
of them, and you play with them in your fingers, and you can flick them around, a bit like that fidget spinner that you're
Yep.
talking about. So you'll probably like that one.
I'm going to go on this website after and have a gander, and you'll see me on Instagram in a couple of weeks playing with some new tools and toys that just distract me.
Yeah, a few vids.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, see you later, the pen. You've
Yeah,
been here for the last 25 years. You can go now.
yeah. Well, one thing when we're talking about going back to like underdeveloped skills is uh I talk with Jess about this a fair bit, and when we're talking about like our strengths that we bring to sessions and to people and what we can help with,
Yep.
she Jess is a very logical person, very logical thinker, and as you've probably seen, and she can break. She's incredible at what she does. She can come to the cause root of a problem and break it down just extremely well. And myself, I'm a very sensitive person, and I can feel a lot. And within that, there's sometimes, when we've had arguments and stuff, I get overwhelmed and I feel a lot. And when she's being very logical, my brain just shuts down. And that's the part with when we get activated within our nervous system, we get triggered and we go into our fight and flight or into our freeze state,
Yep.
and we're no longer regulated anymore to have this calm, regulated conversation where you can actually solve something. So I can't go into that logical frame, and Jeff sometimes can't fall into that feelings based.
Yep.
And so what I've sort of found is it's definitely a strength or that she has and a strength that I've got that we're working on together to strengthen each other and
That's
through
awesome.
communicate. Yeah, yeah. And we still have arguments. I think most relationships do. And we so when that stuff's highlighted for you, there's a lot of room to grow. So one thing that I find with a lot of clients, because I work very feelings based, it's about like what's happening inside the body. What are you feeling now? Like, and a lot of people can't, um, don't know how to articulate that.
Yep.
So when I'm talking about like, okay, so you're feeling angry right now. How do you know that you feel angry? And they sit there and it's like, well, man, because I'm just fucking angry. Like they've pissed me off. And so it's a very logical way of like you're all in your head there, but we're our mind and our body. We're not just our they're not they're together. They're not just the one thing. So when you're angry and you might be feeling like um, pulsating in your fingers, you might feel just like this hot flush go over you where you're about to really just pop off and start saying things you don't mean or getting very agitated and angry. When you're sad, you might be uh, sitting sitting down and just have like this turning in your stomach where you just feel sick. You know, we've all probably experienced that time where you've gotten a fright or someone's said something and you're going to get in trouble and you feel like your heart sink into your stomach. It's things like this which are indications that you're being activated or you're being triggered into your fight and flight and your freeze state. So working with that, it starts to give you a bit of a superpower. Like, all right, my hands are starting to pulsate right now. I'm starting to not think clearly because once your body starts becoming activated, your brain, the prefrontal cortex of your brain, it starts to shut off. And we go more into our emotional parts of our brain where it's our amygdala and our hippocampus, and they start to, look for dangers and threats. And so we can't think clearly because that's all in the prefrontal cortex. That's making sense. Don't know if
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
making sense.
definitely.
Yeah, it's taken me a long time to really be able to articulate it well and feel it, but this is what happens. And we have a certain um, Some people go straight to fight and flight, some people go straight into freeze. We have one area that we fall more into very easy. And I definitely shut down. I go more into the freeze state and I'll go quiet, I'll go numb, I'll go very inwards, and I just can't speak and I'll shut down like that. I can also get activated into the fight and flight and then, blow your lid off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not that you just, you go fight and flight and then, then you go freeze. You can go either you can go freeze and you go up into fight. It just alternates. So the part where I'm probably leading to go with that is starting to understand like what's it feel like inside to be angry for you, sitting with that part. What's it feel like to be sad? What's it feel like to be one big thing is what's it feel like to be happy and good and excited? Because we do tend to know what it feels more like to be annoyed and angry and upset with someone or with ourselves because we are our worst critic than what it feels like to feel good. And what I do with clients, I try to take them back into a moment where it's like, when's the last time that you remember feeling excited for something, or you I watch for when I'm talking with them, and I'm like, I'll see them sort of light up. You'll see them start to smile. You'll see like energy come into them,
Yep.
and that's a moment where I'm like, okay, what's just happening here? Like you were talking about your dog, you're telling me that Sammy is such a good fella. You love going for walks with him. But when you're really upset, he comes and he jumps on your lap, and then you give him a pat. He makes you feel better. So you have all this love for him. It's like, where do you feel that? Because we shut off to our body. We 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 learn from a young age not to feel these feelings because we put ourselves in such uncomfortable situations throughout life. Like, introverted people, you've still got to go out, you've still got to communicate with people, you've got to be social, you've got to be in these teams, sporting teams, but you can feel very uncomfortable in that. How do you manage to be able to do that? Because really, like, you just want to isolate sometimes. You don't even want to go out and play these games, but you're
Mm.
sometimes forced to. And so we learn to shut off these emotions or to these emotions. And when we go through our life, we keep um, we keep going into these situations, and we start sort of getting a bit off track there. We start to um, think like this is just the way I am. This is just the way I feel like this, and you don't realize that you're actually being triggered. That you're in an uncomfortable environment. Your brain's actually assessing this area or this environment as dangerous and unsafe. Of course, you're going to feel triggered. Of course, you're going to be more reactive. You're going to say things you don't mean, or you're going to do things that you wouldn't normally do. So once you can start to learn what's happening inside, then you can start to learn how to regulate those emotions. And it's really coming back to our senses and our five senses that we experience all the time, and that's taste, touch, smell, uh, hearing, and sight. And so when we bring all that back in, we look around, we check out our environments. It's called orienting, and it's a very primitive thing because we're used to being in a dangerous environment where lions and you know might be running out of somewhere, or there's old mate with the spear chucking a spear at you. That if we don't take in our environment, we our brain is still assessing it through a peripheral vision that we're still unsettled until we look around and we say, oh yeah, I'm not in a dangerous situation. Um, I use like going to the pub. Like I get uncomfortable going to a pub because you walk in there, there's all these people around, you don't really know them, it's quite loud. Usually I've got to have like 3 or 4 beers and then I start feeling quite calm and relaxed, and then I can
Yep.
start engaging with people. Um, But now I try when I go into these areas to look around, really take in from all the way behind me, all the way back around to the other side, everyone that's in that room, people that are around, noises that you're hearing, and that can help start to settle my nervous system. That's just one
100%.
way as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Everything you said, I'm just thinking of how common it is for blokes. Even when you said for you, you shut down. I
Yeah.
used to erupt a lot, but now I guess retreat or I freeze and I shut down. And I know that it's so common for men to do that, and it
Mm.
leads to more issues in their relationships. And the last thing anyone wants is a relationship to fall apart. But they're like, oh, my wife gets pissed off because, or my partner gets pissed off because I just shut down and I storm off, but I just don't know what to say or I don't know how I feel. So it's the best thing for me to do in that moment. And what
Mm.
you then said after that was like, you need to learn to understand what those triggers are so that you can then communicate it. Like
Hmm.
I remember when I was learning to go from through that process of not erupting or not shutting down, I just had to say to Amy, I just was like, hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable and I don't really know how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking at the moment. Can you just give me 10 minutes? Like, just because when I could remove myself from the situation, I could then go, do I need to write about this or do I need to, like, doing all the things you mentioned? Like, how am I actually feeling right now? Is this me angry? Is this me sad? Is this me nervous? Like, what am I feeling? Because then you
Yeah.
can explain that. And over time, like, Amy can read me like a freaking book now where she's like, you're doing that thing again. And rather than just always calling me out, we've made a rule where it's like when I shut down, when I'm over, similar to you, Dan, I get very overwhelmed with people, but part of my job is being around people a lot. So I'll just come home and I'm like, she knows. She's like, I'm just going to let you go stare at the wall for 20 minutes and then we can engage. But that's taken years. And I would imagine just from what you said as well, like you've constantly been learning and it's something that we never stop. It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
We have to keep flexing it to get better at it so then we can reduce the space between the stimulus and our response. Initially it may take us, you might say, hey, come back to me in 12 hours. Then I'll be able to tell you, but then it might be 4 hours and then it might be on the
That's
spot.
it.
But
Yeah.
that whole process for everyone who's listening, go back and listen to it twice and actually write down the key components that you said, where it's like the awareness of what am I actually feeling like? What does that really feel like in my, the hot flushes, the tingling in my fingers, like the burning sensation. Write it down
Mm.
and then start to notice what's causing that. Like ask yourself those questions, as Dan said, and then you can start figuring out, hey, what's the best way to have a good response based off how I'm feeling.
Yeah. And that regulation, so I work a lot with, it's called the polyvagal theory.
Okay.
And it's it's really we have it's called the window of tolerance. So when you're in that window of tolerance,
My window
it's
is small.
I think yours is actually quite big. I was like, this guy, when you're able to handle yourself in, everywhere that you speak, you live a very active life. I see it online. I'm like, I don't know how Lockie finds the time to do all this shit. It's crazy.
I don't,
Yeah.
and I'm often overcommitting, which is my biggest issue. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And so it's this window of tolerance is where we want to operate. And what I usually draw it for my clients is if you imagine it like you got your window of tolerance in the middle, and then above that you've got your fight and flight, and that's called your hyper arousal state. And then at the bottom you got your hypo arousal, and that's your freeze state. So your freeze states, anything like that, you start to shut down, you start feeling numb, you freeze, you're quiet, you're lethargic, all that, there's no energy there. And then in your hyper arousal, when you think of it, you're hyper, you're excited, you're anxious, you're agitated. It's all the movement stuff. So we want to operate in that window of tolerance, but throughout the day, we're pinging. So if you imagine, if you imagine the heartbeat monitor at the hospital, where it's like beep,
yep,
beep, beep, that's what we're going through during the day because we're having stimulus, like what you said before, stimuli. Certain things are like, you might be at work and your boss might come in and tell you, all right, I need you to get this and this and this done before the end of the day. You can't leave till it's done. That's going to piss anyone off. So that's one of them. That's one of them beeps where it sort of you get a bit activated. but you still might be in your window of tolerance. You still might be able to handle that. And you're like, yep, cool, no worries. Next thing, you come down a little bit, you sort of regulate again. And then your wife starts kicking off about something, or, telling you got to do something before you get home. And then you're getting shorter and shorter on time. You got more and more getting on your plate. And then it's like a beep again. And then you pop out of that window of tolerance. And that doesn't mean that you blow up at her or anything like that. Now you're a bit more short fused. And then something else happens. And then you really erupt. But it's those little things starting to go like, all right, I'm feeling them tingles in the fingers, or I'm feeling the swirls in my stomach, or my head it just feels like it's just being pounded. It's like, okay, yep, I just need some time here. Say you're about to have a conversation or an argument. It's fine to go, all right, I just need 10 minutes or 20 minutes just to go for a walk, come back to myself, breathe a little bit. Our breath is just such a massive thing. Like, slowing that breathing down, because I'll see it in clients all the time when I'm watching their body a lot, and I'm like, all right, what would it be like right now to take a deep breath in? And they go, and then they let that out, and they're just like, oh yeah, that feels a lot better. I was like, all right, let's do another one. And then yeah, because they'll be pacing, they'll be starting to talk really quick and getting agitated. You see it with horses. It's like horses are just such an amazing thing to work with, because they reflect what's happening with the client. And I'll be like, did you notice Cleo just let that deep breath out? And they're like, yeah, yeah. I was like, what's happened with you? And they're usually like, ah, yeah, I let a deep breath out. I'm feeling more calm in my body now. And so, yeah, because your nervous system, they're feeling your nervous system. You're co-regulating with them, and that starts to they're a mirror. The horses are a mirror. They'll display so much, and I'm watching the horse, I'm watching the client, we're talking about the content, and I'll see stuff change in the horse before something settles with the client. And then I just bring it back to the client, and I'm like, what are you noticing now in the body? And they're like, and they might be about to cry. They're like, I feel really sad. And it's like, yeah. But when you're being congruent, when you're being true to yourself, the horses respond to that as well, because they're like, there's nothing false there. You're not trying to hold yourself in a certain way. You're just like, just complete rawness. This is me. This is what it is. And it's so beautiful to see. And I just had a great session yesterday where the horses were in the paddock, were in the arena with us, and we actually weren't even, we were up the other end of the arena. And we had done some work with the horses, but as we were moving away from the horse, I had a client, and I was like, I noticed they were a bit tense. And I was like, let's take some deep breaths. And he took these deep breaths. And I felt it happen in me, where it was just like, it felt light. And I was like, I checked in with her. I was like, do you notice anything that's changed within your body? And she's like, yeah, I just feel very relaxed and very light. And I was like, did it feel like something? Oh, no, she said, it felt like something just sort of went from the top and just went through my body and just really relaxed me. Because I've never felt like that before. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I think there was a good space to stop that session. I was like, that there is what regulation feels like, when you feel calm and relaxed throughout your body. Because a lot of us, we're tense, we're tight, we've got stuff piling up at work, we're doing shit all the time, we're constantly active.
Guilty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're sneaking on pedals,
Yeah,
we're doing
yeah, yeah.
podcasts, and we just get no time to have that settle, um, that part to just sit there and relax. And you're going to have a child soon, and then there's going to be more. And so it's about knowing when that relaxation, how to feel that regulation, and how to get yourself into that regulated state. And because you can handle so much more. When
Mm.
we have traumatic stuff happen, our window of tolerance, it gets shorter, and we pop out easier. Yeah, sort of went on a bit of a
That's,
line there.
dude, that was, I'm glad you tied the horse working because I wanted to dive into that. But that like idea of a window frame and above and
Mm.
below is for me who likes having visual ideas in my head. Like that makes so much sense. And then knowing that if it's jumping above the skirting, not the skirting, the architraves, it's just like, well, you need to have something to help you regulate that. What is that? And that's where you get to speak to people like yourself or find other tools that are going to bring you back within that window. And you can find ways as well to make your window bigger, right? So you
Yeah,
can deal with more, which is cool. I've like that's such an empowering idea because I know for me a decade ago I just didn't think I could change who I was. Like the
mm.
belief was just this is who I am, this is all I am. That sucks. Deal with it.
Exactly like the client I just had yesterday. I was like, I thought this was just how I was going to be or how I was. And I never felt that feeling before. That
How
was
does that feel for
massive.
you being able to deliver that to someone? Like that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And as a
Did you
thing
say
that I've
horsesome?
yeah, yeah. I sometimes I jump on my words. I jump on my sayings all the time.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, it was really like just it's what I'm in it for. And it's one thing, um, I talked to Jess about a lot of stuff and like what's going on within life, within practice and stuff. And she's incredibly good at what she does. And so when you have someone like that in your household, you you're bouncing things off, but you're also like, oh shit, what do I offer? You know? And so we're talking about strengths and like that every person has these strengths and these qualities, and it's about trying to find it. And she's like, you feel a lot. You're a very sensitive person. And she's like, that's one of your strengths. And it was literally that was either yesterday morning we're having that and that had that session in the afternoon, or we were talking the day before. And I was just like, oh fuck, like you are right. Like that is a strength for me because she's like, not many people can feel that shift within someone and to be attuned and yeah, attuned to that level. And I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
Was
That
that
be
was
able to
that
help people.
was that hard to accept, like going through that 2 days ago, or did you feel like once it landed, you were like, yeah, that I can see that quality in myself or that strength in
Yeah.
myself?
Yep. I think like I can be bad at receiving compliments, and it's a big thing. Like a lot of people are. Um, I really get great at booming people up.
Yep.
To receive a compliment myself, I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. Like no, I was like, look it away. Like makes me
Let me
feel like
talk back
comfortable.
about you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, back to you. And just once again, it's highlighted that to me. And so I do try and sit in that more and start to hear that. And when she's repeated that to me, I'm like, okay, yeah, like that might be. Then having that session, I was like driving back after it. I'm like, yeah, that was really fucking cool. And that is a strength. And then it reminded me of when I was doing my course. So I studied at EATA, and that's Equine-Assisted Therapies Australia, and that's down the. They got bases in Gold Coast, Sydney, Melbourne. They might have one. I think they might have opened one in WA. I can't remember. But I was traveling down the Gold Coast and would do like a week prac every sort of
Yep.
4 to 6 weeks, and it might have been my second, third week of prac out of 12, and I had that same sort of feeling like something shifted in the client. And my teacher, Jane Faulkner, if you want to read anything on equine therapy or equine assisted therapy, Jane is just incredible. She's a she is just like one of you like Socrates, where
Oh, really?
you just quote Jane. We'll be doing our counselling therapy with our. We'll just always counsel the other students, so you're only in like groups of like between you know 8 and 10 within the workshops, and so that's sort of your cohort that you go through with because Jane will go around when you're practicing your skills. You'll have her and a couple other therapists come in and sit there, and they'll help you through it and guide you through certain parts because you'll have little parts that you're just missing something or you're needing a little bit of extra help. And so they guide you a little bit, and it's amazing because it just helps you so much. That hands-on um, learning. And Jane will come in, and you'll be doing the stuff, and you're like, okay, I know the client is, you know, there's something big there, and you're trying to find the right thing to say, give them space, say this. And Jane will come in and she'll say like one sentence, and then the client will start crying, and you're just like, oh fuck, like she just does it effortlessly. And she's done this for such a long time. She's an incredibly intelligent woman. And but yeah, so she, yeah, she's our like Socrates. We all love her. She she said to me, she's like, "Oh, did you felt that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I felt that that shift within inside me, what the client described." And she's like, "Oh, wow, that's really great because that's what you're going to feel, learn to feel into with your clients because your nervous system, you want to be regulated. So you want to do self-care on yourself because your client's going to be regulating off of you, and you got to know yourself and." Because otherwise, something like that will happen. You're like, is that me? Was there something with me that's changed, or was it something within the client? The more aware that you are of yourself, the more aware you can be like, okay, something shifted with the client, and now I can bring it back to them. That makes sense.
Fucking awesome. Like you can even just see how pumped you get when you're talking about it. Like that, and that's a cool thing, right? For me, it's like infectious because I've worked with psychologists and therapists before, and obviously you're not going to gel with everyone, but when people
Yeah,
talk in the way that you talk, well, for me, I'm like, this is epic. It gets me pumped up,
yeah,
and I'm excited to hear more about what your vision is and what you're building towards. But it does give people, well, for me, it gives me this feeling where I could just trust you, right? Which is such an important thing in being able to open up. Like if you don't trust someone or if you don't feel comfortable, then it's really hard to do the necessary work. But the moment that you do that, and for me, just the idea of being around horses as well, epic. Like it's just like it just feels calming. I love being in the bush. I love being out around that. So it's just like such a cool way. And I've heard of it before, but I've never really
mm.
looked into it until we connected back in, when was that? September? It was something like that.
Yeah. A few months ago now,
Yeah.
could be
And
more.
like
Yeah.
then I'm like, far out, you're the first person I know who does this. I know Will Zillman, who I was talking to you about,
Mm.
I think does something similar, but I think he's more a vet than that. But it's such a cool thing for people to be able to, especially blokes, right? Like blokes love doing something while talking, not necessarily just sitting on a couch and talking directly across. So
And that's the thing. It takes you out into a more natural environment. So you feel more comfortable out there. You got stuff that you're looking at. You got the birds. You got the horses. There's some cattle on the property where I am. You got like beautiful dams. It's just like, and that's better than looking at a picture on a wall, isn't it? Like,
mate, 100%.
and
So
it does. It allows you to sort of come into that regulated state.
and so how does it work? Like for people, do they have to, do you work with people online and face to face or just mainly face to face? Like obviously the horses aren't going to jump on Zoom with you, or do they?
Yeah. No, no, no. I just sit here. I got Cleo behind me. I do in-room counseling as well. So this space I've got here is one
Yep,
of my in-room ones. Well, it is my in-room one. I haven't done too much Zoom. I've done a couple just over the phone, just when
yep,
clients could have come in and they needed the session. Um, but I find the face-to-face, uh, being in the presence, the I enjoy that work more. Not
yep,
saying that I will never do Zoom sessions at all either. But the horses, when you're when you're in the paddock and stuff like that, it's like they you don't necessarily it's all on the ground, so there's no riding or anything like that. It's just all groundwork. We can do like leading exercises. I like to just sort of be in the paddock with the horses and see
yep,
how the horses engage. Um, So for instance, when I was doing my course, uh, our teacher Jane, she had an a friend come and she did a counseling session on him, and our group, we got to actually watch and see how this works. So we're all in the paddock, and Jane had, I think, 7 horses, and they're all scattered around. And so her and the client, they've started walking up into the paddock. She has a microphone on, and we can hear what they're saying. He had a microphone on, and he was going through a very emotional part. And he was with one horse, and he was starting to cry. And probably about 20 meters away, we're about 30 meters behind them. We're a group of 8 of us. There's about 20 meters, 30 meters to the right of us, another horse, and he's just grazing there. Once this client started crying, he's just started walking and just stopped himself right in front of our group and blocked us between um, the client and Jane. And it was almost like, all right, your energy, all you guys watching him right now, your energy's too much. We're just going to stop you for now. And once the client finished crying, I'm pretty sure his name was Chief, just walked off. And I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, there's something in this equine therapy. I was
That's
like,
heavy.
yeah,
That is
so that
so
was pretty
fucking
cool to see.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
stuff like that where you just like you have these moments that you can't really explain, but you're like, there's got to be something in those moments. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where can
So,
so up at Maryborough,
yep.
people can like head up there and just do a session with you. Or what's it like look like? Is it more of a program, or is it a one off, or like how does all that work?
So sort of I work between Maryborough and Harvey Bay. My
Yep.
property that I work out of is near Susan River
Yep.
and just in between. So usually I'm looking at maybe trying to do like some retreats in the future, which would
Sick.
be, yeah, which would be something awesome. Um, just because if people are going to travel, the part there is if your nervous system is very activated all the time and you operate in your fight and flight quite a bit,
Yep.
you're quite hyper aroused. The horses pick up on this. And I really want to do like work with you to create a lot of regulation first because we step into that paddock or pardon me, into the arena with the horses, and you don't know what regulation feels like or how to be regulated. Um, when we touch on something traumatic that's happened in your life, we can't bring you down, you know. And horses, they will trigger things. They will bring stuff up. You'll see um, if you've got a couple horses or there's a couple horses around and someone's gone through a lot of domestic violence or sexual assault, the horses will actually start to, um, bite each other or be a bit more aggressive with one another, and they'll display what's going on, like in
Wow.
that person's life, and that can be very triggering. Um, yeah, horses they just pick up on so much, and so if uh, if a client isn't ready for things like that, then sometimes it might blow them a little bit, and the last thing we want to do as a therapist is re-traumatize someone.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a big thing too, is like the equine assisted therapy is can be unregulated within Australia. There's Gaines working really hard to create a body that is recognised, and that's why doing the course through her, it's like you are recognised with ACA, um, which is Australian Counselling Association. And but with it, you learn how to handle someone's nervous system. That's the biggest thing. Because horses are, can't deny it, they're therapeutic. They bring out so much. They're so helpful in so many ways. If someone's very traumatized and you've got someone who's like, yeah, come hang out with the horses, like they're going to help you. And then something triggers them and they have a flashback and they just can't get out of that, then if you don't know how to help regulate that client back down, it's a horrible experience for them.
Yeah, far out. And so where can people get in contact with you? Because I find it
Uh,
fascinating. I feel like even just what we spoke about earlier, like the emotional regulation is such a important thing. Like I've spoken to so many men over the years, and I've been one of them,
Yeah.
where I say things that I regret or I do things that I regret when I'm in a emotional state that I don't understand. And so when you were talking about that and how the horses and the work that you're doing can help with that, I'm like, that's probably one, aside from communication, it's probably one of the most important skills to develop as a person and especially as a man to regulate your emotions.
Yeah. Um, like I think we continually are learning all this stuff. Like I help so many people through it and help them start to gain understanding around it, and I'm still working through it myself. You know, because we're like as we get older, we keep leveling up, don't we? We keep
We're
trying
never
to,
there.
yeah, yeah. So we're all human at the end of the day. Um, and I think, yeah, I can be quite relatable to people because I've been a tradie, I've been a ringer in the territory, I've done some traveling, I've done a Vipassana in India and stuff, and so there's these things that you can relate with, and you can help people meet on a certain level, and learning these skills is just it makes everyone a better person, you
Mm,
know. No.
couldn't agree more.
Um, But yeah, you can find me, Dan Gillan Equine Therapy. I've got an Instagram page which you follow, you know that. I'm putting up some videos of my journey and building my therapy space.
It's sick.
Um, yeah, and then I got a website, www.dangillenequinetherapy.com.au.
They will all be in the show notes for everyone to check out. I'll share a few of your videos um, as well, which will be very, very cool. And obviously, you're doing a lot of great work as well, which we didn't really get to dive into the charity work and the fundraising, which is obviously super important to you with the loss of your sister, but it's obviously driving a lot of the work that you do today.
Yeah,
And you're amazing, dude. Like I still remember the first conversation we had. I remember when you asked a question when I was speaking, but then we caught up after, and I was like, it sucked that you had to go for a dinner with your mates, a steak with your mates. And I was like,
yeah,
damn it! Like I had so many other questions I wanted to connect with you on. So I'm sure we will potentially even do some stuff together. In when you said workshops, I'm like, oh,
yeah.
that could be cool. In the
I'll swags the bush, yeah, everything.
the dream, that's what that is to me. I'm like, we did a workshop last year called Fit on the Farm, and
Yeah,
it's exactly that. And then just get the lads, they were training for a half marathon on the farm, and then it was just like bonfire, a little bit of other things. But it's cool to get people, especially obviously I work with men, especially, but get them in that space and give them new experiences. Let them learn how to understand what they're feeling and how to talk about what they're feeling because it's only going to improve their quality of life. But dude, it's been an absolute pleasure. Um,
yeah.
I'm glad we got to make this happen. I think we need to do another one because we still got a whole nother side of you to talk about, and with all the great work that you're doing, and that's the cool thing, right? Like you're doing and you have done so much incredible stuff. We could talk for hours.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that's the same thing. I remember I was chatting to Jess after I met you. I was like, that Lockie, he's a fucking good bloke, eh? I was like, he's my type of guy. So yeah, do good.
I appreciate it. Thanks so
Look
much for
forward.
coming on, brother.
No worries, my pleasure. Talk soon.